Well, hey, good day to you. This is Todd. I am a regular dude walking in the Word. Today we are concluding not Colossians, but chapter 1 of Colossians. And the conclusion of this is part of a three-part series on what was the ministry of Paul. And where Paul shared, this is my ministry, okay? Part 1 was he was called to share the gospel. Part 2, which we talked about yesterday, was suffering for the Gentiles. And then part 3, which we're talking about today, is striving for the saints, okay? And you're going to see here, and this is taken from Colossians chapter 1, verse 28, and then we're going to go all the way to chapter 2, verse 3. In this section, he talks about striving for the saints, okay? That term, striving is an athletic term, okay? So I'm very familiar with that term because I do athletic events, not as much right this point in my life, but I have done quite a few athletic events. And striving is a word where you're pressing on to get that prize. You're pressing on. It's not just a walk in the park, but you're striving to finish the race. So I'll use, I don't know, Ironman in 2008 or 2011. When I completed that race, I was striving to finish Ironman. So I did the swim, which was 2.4 miles 2.4 mile swim, and I was just swimming along, trying to keep a good pace, because I knew I had the bike and the run still to do. So I just kept a good pace, not out there to kill myself. And then got onto the bike, and the bike was 112 miles. And in that bike ride, I just kept on striving on. I was like, I'm not going to stop and take breaks and go to a restaurant and sit down and have a pizza and so forth. I was striving to finish this race. So I kept on that bike. I just kept thinking, okay, you kept the finish line in mind. I got to get to that finish line. And so over those 112 miles, you just kept thinking, I got to get to that finish line. You kept striving on. You kept pushing yourself, okay? Again, it wasn't just a casual bike ride, but you were constantly pushing your body. And then when I started the run, at that point, different people had given up, and they were walking the run. I was striving to finish the race and striving to finish in a good time and striving to have a good result. And so my goal was to run the whole 26-mile run, and that's what I did, was run the 26-mile run. So I was striving to finish that run, and striving to do my best to finish that run. Where other people, I was passing so many people, not tons and tons of people, but I was passing people because they weren't striving anymore. They were walking, okay? They were like, oh, we'll get there when we get there. But I was striving. I wanted to finish this race and finish strong. So that word striving fits in real nice when at the run part, you imagine the run where you're pushing yourself to finish. And then finally you see that finish line, and you can hear that finish line maybe a mile off. The announcer, talking, music playing and stuff like that. And that last mile, you're pushing yourself. Like, I gotta finish strong. And I knew I had a goal to beat this certain time. And I knew, okay, I push myself. And that's what I was doing, was pushing myself to finish in this time. And then I finished with 2 minutes to spare, whatever. And so I was striving to finish. And that's what I say all that because that's what Paul is saying here. He's striving for the saints. He is pushing his body and pushing himself to share the gospel and to disciple these people as much as he can. Okay, and so he's pushing himself. He's not like, oh, whenever it's convenient there, then I'll share the gospel. He's like, no, I'm going to do all I can to share the gospel. All right, so let's read here. This is taken today from Colossians chapter 1, verses 28 to for chapter 2, verse 3. All right, it says this: He is the one we proclaim, admonishing and teaching everyone with all wisdom. Okay, so we're proclaiming Jesus. All right. And we're doing this, teaching everyone with all wisdom. and proclaiming with admonition and teaching everyone with all wisdom, so that we may present everyone fully mature to Christ. The goal is like not to get them saved, but we are trying to present them to Christ as fully mature believers. Okay, so that's not just like doing an evangelistic event for one night and like, okay, we're done, yay, thank you. No, this is like starting churches and discipling those people, and those churches start other churches, and that's what Paul is doing. His goal is to minister to people, disciple them, raise them up in the church, and then those churches start other churches, all right? So that these believers are fully mature in Christ. Verse 29, it says, To this end I strenuously contend with all the energy Christ so powerfully works in me. He's doing this with all the energy he has. He's pushing himself like, we got to minister to these people, and we got to, I got to send this letter to the Colossian people, and I got to, talk to the people of Philippi, and so forth. Chapter 2, verse 1, I want you to know how hard I'm contending for you, and for all those that at Laodicea, and for all those who have not met me personally. He's contending for those people he hasn't even met yet, okay? My goal is that they may be encouraged in heart and united in love, so that they may have the full riches of complete understanding, in order that they may know the mystery of God, namely Christ, in whom are all things, hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, okay? Now you're saying to yourself, how in the world is Paul contending, and how is he striving while he's in prison, okay? Well, two ways, okay? First of all, he's writing letters. These letters he's sending out, and he's not just sitting down, taking, napping all day in the jail cell, but he's spending his time writing letters and teaching those that have come to jail, which are other church leaders, okay? These other church leaders have come to the jail there, and he is ministering to them, and then he's ministering also through these letters going out. But the big way he's also contending is by prayer, okay? So he's spending time in prayer for these believers, and he says people he hasn't even met, but he's praying for those people. So that's the big thing. That's one way we can all be contending for or striving for the saints, is just by prayer, okay? Praying these things. So when I did a bike ride this morning, I spent time on that bike ride, not just, I spent time just out looking around and looking at God's creation and everything, but I also spend that time in prayer, and I do it also in other prayer times too. But I spend that time in prayer. I'll pass by someplace and I'll pray for this church. I pass by a couple churches, so I pray for those churches that they would minister to people today, and people could get saved there, and the church would grow and prosper and reach other people. So that's a way that we can be praying for those people. And then I'll pray for individuals that I know. As I pass by a cemetery, there's a guy that he was a friend of mine that he passed away a few years ago. But I pray for his family, and I pray for his son and stuff as I go through there. So I'm spending time in prayer for those things. So I would encourage you, just as Paul said, I'm striving for the saints. Also, we should be striving for the saints too. Looking for ways we can disciple others, okay? Not just get them saved, but also discipling them so that they are fully mature Christians, okay? But then just spending time in prayer, praying for those people. That's how we can strive for the saints there. So those are the three ways Paul was ministering. He was, first of all, sharing the gospel. Second of all, he was suffering for the Gentiles. And then thirdly, what we talked about today, suffering for the saints. Okay? I'd encourage you to work on each one of those three things, just like Paul was. Hey, I'm just a regular dude walking in the Word, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we continue our journey looking at Colossians. Lord's blessing. I'll see you tomorrow.